Hello, Pirate Dave here, and it is time for another Phantom Daily story. This time, Daily Story number 16, The Phantom Goes to War, otherwise known as the Inexorables. Inexorable means unstoppable, but I prefer that first title personally. To quickly recap the previous story, which was The Phantom's Treasure, as the title implies, the Phantom's Treasure was stolen. It was actually stolen by one of the Bandar trying to ingratiate himself with some local beachcombers. Those beachcombers, of course, get away with the treasure initially until the Phantom tracks them down and slowly plays the mind games that he does to extract the treasure back and solidify the legacy of his forefathers. And that actually plays into the Phantom Goes to War pretty well, to be honest. Just as a quick warning, this story is it's mainly a propaganda story for World War II. It's very topical to the World War that was going on at the time. And as a result, there are some many insensitive depictions, both of Africans, as is pretty conventional for the Phantom at the time, but also of Japanese soldiers. A lot of insensitive depictions of that, as well as nomenclature. The terms for Japanese soldiers commonly used in media during those times appears throughout this book consistently. I will I will not be saying them myself, of course, but as you read them on the page, you'll see derogative terms, especially considered now derogative terms for Japanese soldiers. And you'll actually also see them referred to as soldiers of Nippon as well, which is the Japanese's name for their country. So there's this weird sort of balance of or acknowledgement of the respectful names, and then this complete imbalance, or 90% of it is just, again, those truncated pejoratives. Speaking of truncation, this is a very long story, so I will try my best to sort of truncate the action to just keep it moving along. But it is the longest Phantom story since the first one. Let's go ahead and get right into it. As dawn, a few hundred miles off the Bengali coast, Japanese flotilla approaching Bengali. Bengali is possibly the foreign name for Bengala, or just the name for Bengala at this time. And of course, the U.S. intelligence discovers that Japanese forces are planning to march through the Bengali jungles, and they have nobody in that region. They weren't expecting Japan to actually do this, so they are completely unprepared. As a result, they send for Major Palmer of Army Intelligence. That's not Major Diana Palmer, that's Major Dave Palmer. But of course, Dave is only tangentially familiar with Bengala, so he sends for his niece, who has led several expeditions through Bengala, of course, and that is Diana Palmer. What wonderful way to introduce this premise and get Diana Palmer into the war effort. They ask Diana what their options are for shoring up defenses in Bengala, get them warned about Japanese forces marching through, and Diana lets them know about the Phantom, that there is a man that can pose a threat to the Japanese forces there. So they send her with details regarding the Allies' plan to reinforce Bengala, but they will need a couple of months to get everything ready. Meanwhile, in Bengala, we actually meet back up with Timu, son of Gran. Timu was the kind of star of the last story, The Phantom's Treasure. Timu and the other tribespeople spot bees buzzing through the air, dropping strange eggs, and these eggs, of course, turn out to be bombs, and the local village is bombed to heck. Timu's at a loss for what to do when he spots a drum, and that's when Timu starts drumming out the word, drumming out to the jungle, "Warriors of Nippon in Bengali, warriors of Nippon in Bengali." What a hero moment for Timu. It's crazy to end the last story and wonder, like, is he really going to get, another hero redemption? He gets this crazy hero redemption right at the beginning of the story. The soldiers do realize that he's drumming out, but they think nothing of it. They don't even, in fact, know why he's drumming, maybe just out of madness. So thankfully, Timu has enough time to get the message out, and we can see some of those pejoratives right there. The Phantom realizes that Japanese forces are in Bengala. Meanwhile, Diana's still on her way to Bengala, and the Phantom contemplates exactly how they're going to fight the Japanese invaders. And the first plan, of course, is to get all the chiefs together and get them ready to fight. But this one chief, Chief Bigwind here, he is skeptical about fighting Japan. He says this isn't our war. There's no reason that we have to fight him. And then just a word of warning, this depiction of Chief Bigwind does get more and more racially insensitive as the panels go on here. Uh, Once again, Chief Bigwind is skeptical about facing the Japanese forces. He doesn't consider them to be a threat to Bangalla. They'll just move on through the jungles, but of course, the Phantom knows better. And Chief Bigwind actually finds an agreement in Chief Thinbird. Chief Thinbird also agrees that they have no reason to fight the Japanese. They haven't done anything to them, and they're not going to enter into a war that is not their interests. But as they're discussing that, agreeing with each other, they see a giant iron turtle coming through the forest. Look at that. These, of course, these tribes people are not familiar with modern weaponry or anything like that. But an iron hut that moves. I'm sorry, that's their term for it. And you can see that. So they try to fight the tank, and of course, to no avail. And that easily convinces Chief Bigwind that he's going to agree to fight the battles. And you can see that depiction is getting more and more racially insensitive. So, with Chief Bigwind and Chief Thinbird on his side, the Phantom rallies the chiefs together to face down the Japanese. But how are tribespeople going to fight the Japanese? Well, you can see the Phantom is leading out some tribespeople to tour an inspection of the jungle defenses when one of those iron huts is moving through the forest. And in fact, Chief Bigwind here asks, how can we fight them with our poor weapons? Shh, wait and watch. And as the tank is rolling through the jungle, the path caves in, the tank tumbles into a concealed pit. And the Phantom gets down there, and as the Japanese forces try to exit the tank, he takes them prisoner. And they've already taken down a tank. Look at that. Who would have thought they would have stood a chance? The Japanese soldiers are tied up at the stake, and Chief Bigwind gets ready to kill the prisoners. That's what they do with prisoners of war. But the Phantom educates them that in the modern age, in modern warfare, prisoners of war are not killed. In fact, you have to feed them. And the chiefs are, feed them? Who ever heard of such a thing? We must obey. It is a strange rule. They come to kill us. We capture them. We feed them. Very strange. Very strange. Very interesting, socio-political kind of messaging going on there. Obviously, normally we'll think of these tribes people as being wholly ignorant, but there is something a bit more pure in exactly what Chief Bigwin is saying there. They come to kill us, but we capture them and we feed them. But that is the nature of war, and that's the agreed upon ethics of war. It is kind of a little bit backwards. Meanwhile, Diana meets up with her contact, Lieutenant Byron. We haven't seen Lieutenant Byron since, frankly, he tried to steal Diana away from the Phantom just after the Slavers storyline. I believe it was Daily Story number 10. So it's been a couple of years, and we get a nice little line from Lieutenant Byron here. I had a stiff fight with the boys, but I won, and I'm assigned to you. So Lieutenant Byron will be escorting Diana to Bangalla to deliver the instructions to the Phantom. The Phantom still doesn't know anything about this. Again, this is his heads up. Is Diana's the only one that knows how to reach him, so she's on her way to warn him. Meanwhile, the Phantom's just fighting blindly. And of course, Diana gives the exposition of the dispatch that she was given. They decide to land on a lake that's nearby the deep woods of the jungle, but unfortunately, they are unlucky because the Japanese forces are already encamped by that lake. They start taking pot shots at Lieutenant Byron and Diana's boat, and so Diana takes the initiative to dive into the lake, where she swims down to the bottom and she ties the dispatch to a rock so that if they're captured, the dispatch will not be captured. And I've got to remember the spot about 100 yards from the shore opposite those. She commits it to memory. It's very cool. I also love this panel right here. You can see her hair is all wild because it's underneath the water. I don't know. I didn't mention it before, but this would be the story that Wilson McCoy would majorly take over duties, as Ray Moore was, as he was enlisted as part of the war effort. So he's off, illustrating for the war. Meanwhile, Wilson McCoy is back at home illustrating this book. But of course, he is trying to match Ray Moore's style as much as possible. But I do think little details like this certainly indicate that we have McCoy under, holding the pencil here. Meanwhile, the Japanese forces enter the lake. They chase after the swimming Lieutenant Byron and Diana, and of course, they easily capture them and they lead them off to their camp. Lieutenant Byron and Diana Palmer are captured. How is the dispatch going to get to the Phantom? There's no way. The Diana and Lieutenant Byron meet the Japanese lieutenant. You are English, American. American. You need not tremble for the time being. You are quite safe until I have fully questioned you. This is Lieutenant Karaki. He's gonna transition between Karaki and Karachi based on the dialogue here, but they're both pretty similar in names. They mean like storehouse of wood, or I believe I'm not sure what Karachi is. So Lieutenant Byron and Diana are captured by Lieutenant Karaki and beaten, of course, as is no surprise. Meanwhile, they're trying to get something out of Lieutenant Byron and Diana, but they see something in the tree line. They're scared stiff of something. What do you suppose it is? I wish I knew. I'd put in a total order, special delivery. Order is restored in the camp. Still, they stare fearfully into the jungle blackness, afraid of something out there. There's something moving in the jungle. They don't quite know what it is. Very bizarre. What could it be? And as they continue to try to get information out of Lieutenant Byron, an arrow strikes one of the Japanese forces. Diana recognizes the small poisoned arrow of the pygmy bandar. The pygmy are in the tree line, but the Japanese forces cannot find them. They cannot see them no matter what they do. It's quite a horrifying it's quite a horrifying force for the Japanese to try to face. They're unfamiliar with, of course, the jungle terrain. Meanwhile, the pygmies are feared by everybody in the jungle, and in this story, we see for good reason. So Lieutenant Karaki decides he's going to lead whoever's into the jungle into a trap. So he ties Byron and Diana to the ground to lure whoever is out there out of them. And because of his own sadistic nature, he sprinkles sugar on them so that sugar to attract ants, not enough to kill you, but enough to keep you company until morning. Good night. What a sadistic man. Meanwhile, this pygmy bandar has seen Diana and Lieutenant Byron. He rushes off to the Phantom. Have prisoners, white man and white woman. And immediately when the Phantom hears a white woman in the jungles of Bangalla, his first assumption is Diana. Byron, these ants are beginning to bite. Hold tight, Diana. Don't give those the pleasure of knowing it. Gotta be careful. Gotta be careful with that term here. As you can see, it's throughout. Devil creeps over to Diana, and Diana sees Devil, and she knows immediately that the Phantom is there to save her. The Phantom takes out Japanese forces. Look at him diving down through the air and tackling him. Really interesting footnote. This is war. It's your life for the other fellows. And the Phantom is playing for keeps. So the Phantom is somewhat indiscriminately, well, I would say he is discriminately killing. He's killing these men. Earlier, we did see him tell the tribal chiefs that they couldn't kill their prisoners of war, but this is him actively trying to save the love of his life, to be perfectly frank about it. So he's not going to take any chances, and that's completely understandable, of course. The Phantom takes out the Japanese forces, and he unties Diana and Lieutenant Byron. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Karaki is waking up. He goes to see about his prisoners, and he finds his men tied in their place. That is crazy. He sees the skull marks on their face. We can see there on the illustration. But he doesn't know what to think about it just yet. It's a good note that we get that panel that explains that he sees them. And looks like the Phantom is heard some Japanese forces following them. Understandably, he's slowed down. He's carrying Diana like that. I don't think he's injured. I think that he just is, you know, is sweet on her. Who knew? The Phantom takes out the Japanese scouts that are following them. I'm glad he's on our side. I'll send the Bandar back for them. They may have some information we can use. So he doesn't kill these men. That's very important to note. But he did kill the men as he was approaching Diana. Now, if you please, yes, of course. And the Phantom and Diana embrace each other. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Byron is standing there with Devil. What am I doing here? Can you tell me that? Look at talking to Devil. Devil lives in this third wheel. You're just a visitor to it, Lieutenant Byron. The Phantom takes Byron and Diana back to the Skull Cave. Diana, ooh la la. Diana gets a shower scene, gratuitous shower scene. The Phantom and Byron kind of reminisce and discuss their situation, that it is quite dangerous and it's quite desperate. They've been lucky so far, but how can they really hold off Japanese forces that long? Diana lets Phantom know about the dispatch that she was sent to get it, but it's tied back near the Japanese camp. That's why Byron and Diana were captured in the first place. So the Phantom is taking a big risk going back to that camp, but he needs that dispatch. He needs to know what the Allies' plans are and how long he needs to hold out and what he needs to do. Meanwhile, Karaki has trapped the local field near his camp with this electrified wire, and the Phantom decides he's going to skirt that camp right through where the wire is going, just because it's the shortest route. It's completely understandable, but he's got to make the risk. Meanwhile, Devil senses something. Devil can sense that wire, but the Phantom doesn't speak wolf dog, unfortunately. So Devil's a great good boy. He does try to alert the Phantom about the presence of the wire, but the Phantom doesn't know what to expect, and unfortunately, he falls into the trap of the wire. Devil initially tries to hold off the Japanese, but the Phantom, run, Devil, run! And Devil knows to listen to his master. He's not gonna fight the Phantom's command. He's gonna take off. And the Phantom is captured by Lieutenant Crocky. This is the first time and you can see Crotchy now. Lieutenant Crotchy has seen the Phantom. He doesn't really know what to think about this initially. Strangely costumed man. But as he's tied up, he inspects him and he sees the skull ring, and he puts two and two together, the skull mark that was on his soldiers earlier. Very interesting about this illustration. It's kind of for the viewer's benefit, right? It doesn't make any sense that the skull is oriented that way. It's upside down from where it should be, but I guess we can all concede that it's for the viewer's benefit. And so Karachi talks to the Phantom. You are the one. And whoever you may be, it's going to be hard with you, as hard as I can make it. And as we saw earlier, Karachi is a sadistic man. He takes great pleasure in torturing people in ways that, ways that he really doesn't need to. He comes up with this trap where the Phantom's going to be wrapped with this wire tied to this grenade. And so, when I pull this string, the fuse of that grenade will ignite. Then after 4 or 5 seconds, you will be blown apart. However, my earlier offer remains. If you will lead the natives to our side and join us and fight us, you will be freed. So he wants the Phantom to bring the pygmy Bandar, which we just saw Lieutenant Karachi having no luck against fighting. He knows how dangerous these natives are, and of course he wants them on the Japanese side. But of course the Phantom does not agree. And so Lieutenant Karachi, he pulls the pin. Grenade's going to go off. Ho ho, ha ha, hee hee ho ho, it wasn't loaded. And everybody's having a great time about that joke. And so I let you look at death, thinking it would make you more sensible. Now, will you bring the natives to our side? And of course, the Phantom doesn't agree to do it. So he comes up with this other elaborate trap, rifles pointed at his head, where if the Phantom breathes or moves, the rifles are going to go off. The Phantom initially just holds his breath for a really long time to show his fortitude at fighting this, but then he thinks about it a little bit more carefully, and then he just breaks off into laughing, and that causes his whole body to trigger, and activating the hair trigger, and of course the triggers click, and nothing fires. And the Phantom wins his gamble with death. He moves, the triggers click, he guessed right. He had a hunch that Karachi wanted his support more than his life, and he was right. And again, it's Karachi just playing this game with the Phantom. He's a very sadistic man. He gets a lot of pleasure on just sort of seeing his prey squirm. But Karachi has had enough of it. I've wasted enough time. Then, without ceremony, he is tossed in front of a tank. They've tossed the Phantom tied with his hands behind his back in front of a tank. This will be my pleasure. Meanwhile, Devil makes it back to the Skull Cave, and Diana's wondering why Devil's here, but the Phantom's not here, and surely something must be wrong. And the tank starts driving towards the Phantom. How is he going to get out of this? Diana lets Byron know that something must be wrong. The tank drives towards the Phantom, but Phantom rolls out of the way, and they just spend the next couple of hours playing with the Phantom, just driving the tank towards him, making him just completely exhaust himself by rolling desperately out of the way. What I mean, that's you know, it's not elaborate, but that's such a horrifying thing, is just barely rolling out of the way over and over again as this monstrous tank is about to roll you off. And of course, the Japanese soldiers are just having a great time at this. They're having so much fun torturing the Phantom in this way. Finally, they decide they're going to do some bayonet practice. They tie the Phantom back to the stake, and this is it. This is the final sort of. They're going to end. They're going to end all their games here, and they draw straws, and the man wins, and they tell him to leave the Phantom alive, just stick him in the shoulder or something. The shoulder charges, the Phantom stands rigidly. Then, out of the darkness, a soft zing. The Bandar get there just in time. Look at that. Byron and Diana are watching. And the Bandar let loose their volley of arrows at the Japanese soldier. They took too long trying to torture the Phantom and allowed the Bandar to get there in time. Meanwhile, Karachi really, really wants to take out the Phantom. He initially thinks about just shooting the Phantom from where he is. But as you can see here, sorry, the focus is not cooperating with me, unfortunately. I apologize. As the battle rages on about him, Karachi concentrates his hatred on the helpless Phantom. No, he will not shoot him. Karachi really wants to plunge a knife into the Phantom's heart. This this wooden table just kind of appears nearby. I don't know why a wooden table would be there in a Japanese encampment that was just installed, but this table actually comes in clutch for these next couple of strips. To be honest, it's actually very important. And Karachi is using this table as a shield as he's slowly crawling towards the Phantom because he wants to stick the knife into him. So Byron decides he's going to run out and he's going to free the Phantom with his own knife. And so it's a race between Byron and Karachi to get to the Phantom first. And of course, Karachi's dragging this table, so he's just going a little bit slower than Byron. Byron jumps up and he races towards the Phantom. He's no longer crawling underneath the gunfire and the arrows. And he's almost there. And that's when Karachi has a gun. He's just choosing to crawl towards the Phantom with a knife. So he uses his gun to take out Byron. And after he shoots Byron, he keeps crawling towards the Phantom with a knife. He just really wants to plunge the knife into his heart. And I don't know how much I believe that given the circumstances, but that gives Byron enough time to keep crawling on despite his gunshot wound. Karachi is almost there. Byron gets there just in time. He cuts the Phantom loose. Good man, Byron. And Karachi has lost his race with Byron. Look at that. The Phantom just jumps on the top of that table and squashes Karachi. Again, hey, that table's really important here. And as he has Karachi pinned underneath the table, he reaches under there, grabs the gun real quick. He uses the gun to shoot out the machine gunners there, and then he drags the table and uses it to bash over the gunners. That table is an MVP of the story. I tell you what, and it came out of nowhere. It's crazy. The Phantom rushes over to Byron, who has been shot, of course, trying to save the Phantom. The Phantom brings Byron to safety. And of course, Diana is glad that the Phantom is all right. And without Karachi disabled, the Japanese forces don't really know what to do. And Look at this. They're taught to obey without thinking, but when there's no one to tell them what to do, they're lost. That's the difference between free men and robots. It might be a bit of historical revisioning, but the way I've always sort of heard about the World War II is this is a very important story. It's something that the Germans and the Japanese were both incredibly impressed with about Allied forces, is that often Allied forces and individual units were able to operate even without higher ranking officers. Again, that may be that that's not exactly true, but that's just how I've always heard it. So hearing it at the time too as well may be maybe a little bit more convincing. I haven't mentioned it, but you can see this little USO badge that appears at the end of most of the daily panels here. Very interesting. It's hard to read. I wonder if people were able to read it back then either, but maybe it's just so ubiquitous that you knew what it meant. It was just it being there that was a nice representation. And so the Bandar Pygmies run off the Japanese soldiers who are lost, but unfortunately, two of the Japanese soldiers climb frantically into a tank. Safely inside, they lay down a barrage and they just take out Bandar with the machine gun. I tell you, they're putting up a great fight, but that modern weaponry is just too too dangerous. The Phantom tells some Bandar to go get some gasoline from Diana's plane, a bottle of gasoline. He throws the bottle. Actually, one of the Bandar throws the bottle onto the tank, and they shoot a fire arrow and they ignite the tank. And of course, the tank's going to heat up and it's going to cause those Japanese soldiers to climb out of it. You see, Karachi, there are more ways than one to skin a cat. I messed that up, unfortunately. And Phantom tells Diana to head off back towards the Skull Cave. And he's still got to go get this dispatch. That's why he came out here to the Japanese cap in the first place. He takes Karachi with him to the lake, but Karachi, of course, fights back as the Phantom knocks Karachi down. Karachi grabs a rusty spearhead out of the sand, and now he's allowing the Phantom to just sort of drag him along, waiting for his opportunity. The Phantom dives underneath the lake to find the dispatch, and that's when Karachi takes his moment. He tries to stab the Phantom in the back, and the two wrestle underneath the water. And Karachi slithers out of the Phantom's grip and fights towards the surface. But the Phantom pops right up after him, and the Phantom drags Karachi down to the bottom of the lake. He grabs the dispatch, and you can see the Phantom surfaces, but Karachi does not. Phantom meets back up with Diana, and in case you thought it was going to be ambiguous, and maybe there was a note to not leave it ambiguous, we see exactly what happened to Karachi here. Where is Karachi? I took him down with me to the bottom of the lake, but I didn't bring him up. This is war. And you can see Karachi's last moments there. This is a Phantom that's in wartime. He's not finding a creative way to stay, to keep people alive. He is fighting Japanese forces and he is killing them. Lieutenant Byron is healing back at the Skull Cave. And meanwhile, the Phantom goes over his dispatches from the Allies. We are to delay the main Japanese push and try to hold this line at the Ulan River until the regular troops arrive. So the Ulan River is the line at which they have to defend. That's what everything sort of depends on. And so the Phantom gets everybody to work learning the modern weaponry. He even uses Japanese prisoners that they've captured to help train them. Every night for the past month, we've raided scattered Japanese camps, brought back weapons and instructors. So it's very interesting. I wonder how often that would have happened, that, sort of Japanese soldiers would have possibly trained the enemy in using their weaponry. Maybe there's some sort of agreement or some sort of deal they could have given them. And meanwhile, Diana is headed off to sleep for the night, and the Phantom recruits Byron for a night raid. They're going to raid a munitions dump in the night. He doesn't want Diana to know because he doesn't want them to worry. And just to sort of truncate this part pretty well, the Phantom is successful because he uses the munitions dump itself as a sort of bargaining chip. When his forces are discovered raiding it, the Japanese soldiers don't want to fire on him because, I mean, that's what they're there to do. They're there to guard the munitions dump. So they can't just blow it up, risk blowing it up by shooting at the Phantom. But the Phantom can shoot from atop the dump all he wants. So they're really got their back against the wall because the Phantom just taking as much munitions as he wants. But as soon as he realizes his luck is going to run out, he tells them to take the last box that they can take, and he sets the rest of the munitions to blow up because if you can't have them, then nobody can. It's a great, smart way to make sure they get enough weapons that they need. And sure enough, the munitions dump does blow up, and the man-made earthquake shakes the jungle for miles around. Still, the mighty explosions continue like great claps of thunder, and it wakes Diana up. What was that? And of course, as the Phantom and Byron make it back, I thought I heard an explosion hours ago. I haven't been able to sleep. What was it? A nightmare, no doubt. It's nearly dawn. Where have you two been? Out for a walk. We needed exercise. I just love that the Phantom and Byron are playing coy with Diana there. And so the Phantom continues to assess the resources that he has available to them. And he tells the chiefs, assemble all the chiefs of the jungle. All the jungle must join against the common enemy. And he tries to rally them, but the chief mentions our people are poor. Our people must work for their daily bread. If we do not work, who will feed us? We have no money to buy from the towns and villages. Who will pay us? And this is where, follow me, chieftains of the jungle. This will pay your people. This will build the Ulan River line. It's the Phantom's treasure, what the Phantom just got back in the last story. And thank goodness he did, because he needed it to finance Bangalla's war effort, Bangalla's defense against the Japanese soldiers, and to build the Ulan River. So we get this really great strip here. For 4 centuries, the Phantom has accumulated this treasure to carry on the fight against evil. This has been entrusted to me to guard and carry on. How could it be used better than against the Axis? I wonder what Dad and Granddad and all the others all the way back would say. If they could know, and perhaps they do, their verses would say, coming roaring down the centuries, we're proud of you, son. What a moment, right? Those 20 previous generations of the Phantom, and yeah, they would be absolutely proud that he's using this treasure to defend Bengala, to defend the world against, the Axis. Sorry, I really love that panel. I didn't mean to give you too much of a dead air moment there. So they get to work reinforcing their line at the Ulan River. And that's when Diana, or the Phantom, starts talking about sending Byron and Diana back to civilization, get out of the danger of the Ulan River. This will be no place for her. I know. Do you think she'll want to leave? I heard that, and the answer is no. She was just walking by. She overheard the Phantom suggesting she would leave, and she's like, nope, not going to happen. Of course, the Phantom insists, Diana insists that the answer is no. These jungle women are staying. They help as best they can. I won't leave just because I have a plane and they haven't. She makes a great point. That's very brave of her. Byron, will you tell her she must leave? Don't get me into this. Now let's forget about it. Don't you know you can't win an argument with a woman? Then I won't try. And the Phantom just picks up Diana to take her off to the plane. Diana eventually, stubbornly and begrudgingly, shouting the whole way, agrees to leave with Byron. She does let the Phantom, she begs the Phantom, please let me stay here with you. Don't make me go away. I'm afraid. Of what, Diana? You'll be in Morristown in a few hours. I don't know. I have a feeling that I shouldn't go. I'm afraid. Please let me stay. But the Phantom insists that Diana takes off with Byron. Completely understandable, of course, of what he's doing. But as Diana and Byron are flying through the air, suddenly a new sound comes from the clouds, a dull, powerful hum. Japanese Zeros come roaring from the north. Japanese fighter planes are coming in, and they're zeroing in on Diana and Byron's plane. And their plane is just a seaplane. It's not weaponized or anything. It has no chance against it. And they are shot, and their plane goes over the tree line. And that's the last the Phantom sees. And he thinks he just forced Diana to her death. How horrific. What I mean, I have no other words. How horrific. Thankfully, Diana and Byron are not dead. They managed to make a safe landing, but they are captured by Japanese forces. They have, without the plan, they have no way to get away, and they are taken, piled into this. I don't know if the Japanese use jeeps, but this sort of jeep-like vehicle there. And the Phantom is still absolutely messed up from the fact that he may have forced Diana to her death, and he just spends. Look at that. He rushes off to where he sees that the plane landed from the smoke screen. Of course, he finds nothing there because Diana and Byron have already taken off. And we get this tremendously well illustrated, heartfelt panel, the setting sun in the background, the Phantom looking down. Oh, the atmosphere of that panel is just amazing. And it's kind of hard to believe that Ray Moore didn't illustrate this one, because this definitely looks like the sort of somber, dark panel Ray Moore would have done. But this is, as far as I'm sure, this is Wilson McCoy at this point, this far into 1942, 1943. Diana and Byron are in the back of this Japanese Jeep as the Phantom tries to regain his bearings. The tribespeople are wondering, where's the Phantom? Has our leader deserved us? He's lamenting the loss. Garan pleads to him, listen to us, your faithful Banda. Without you, the jungle is lost to the invaders, O ghost who walks. Our duty is to the living. Goodbye, Diana. I will fight for you. Diana thinks the Phantom is dead quite often, and the Phantom thinks Diana's dead quite often. This is certainly a situation where it's completely understandable why they think that. And so the Phantom uses it as a rallying effort to fight the Japanese soldiers, gets in a anti-aircraft cannon, and he shoots down some Dianas, and he shoots down some planes, and he's just thinking of Diana the whole time. And meanwhile, Diana and Byron are plotting to escape the Japanese soldiers. They grab one of the guns and they knock out one of the soldiers, and they crash the vehicle into a nearby rock. But meanwhile, there's some tanks coming from behind, and they come up with a plan. They're not going to escape, but they're going to dress up like the Japanese soldiers. And look at that. Diana and Byron in Japanese uniforms. The tanks are just around the bend. We've got to move fast, Diana. No time to tie up these birds. They just sort of dump the Japanese soldiers over the side there. And so they take hold of the car while they're dressed as Japanese soldiers, and they're just leading the tank by being the point car. This is really incredible. Byron realizes that the tank is going to follow them wherever they go, and he uses this to sort of lead them. Now, if only we could find some quicksand or a nice gooey swamp. Tomorrow, 2 flaming arrows. The native sentry spots the tanks in the jungle and fires 2 flaming arrows. Look at that. The Phantom realizes that's the signal. The tanks are in the Lulon sector. Get to the guns. And the Phantom doesn't know that Byron and Diana are disguised as part of this convoy, but they're also leading the convoy to the Phantom so that he can take them out. And of course, the Phantom does. You men will follow me. The guns will cease firing as soon as we reach the bank. And so he's going to infiltrate the convoy to get up and close and personal to take out some of the tanks. Spread out in a great circle. When you see my fire, light your torches and fire the woods. He's going to surround the convoy in this inescapable barrier of fire. And Diana and Byron realize this as he's doing it. And they're actually like, what are those, fireflies? No, fire. Marvelous. The tanks can never get through those flames. Maybe we can't either. They're very impressed by his plan, but they're like, we'll have to try another direction. This road is closed. Do you think the Phantom started these fires? Who else? But he doesn't know that we led these tanks into the woods. No, he thinks we're dead. He may be right. We're surrounded by these flames. No way out. They're impressed by his plan, but of course, it creates such a big problem for them. Byron comes with a plan to get Diana to lay down on the floor of the Jeep while he drives through the flames. He's just, what a brave dude, man. And Diana is on the floor, huddles on the floor. The blazing car emerges from the woods. Escaping from the flaming woods, Byron and Diana are about to leap from the burning car, but a Japanese tank closes is approaching, a remnant of the force that was trapped in the forest. And so Byron drives the car off of the cliff. You can see that. Wow. Drives that flaming car off of the cliff. And as Diana frees herself, she realizes that Byron is trapped. And so she goes up for some air. And that's when a woman and the Phantom sees again a woman in the Bangalla forest is he's 90% of the time it's Diana. So he dives in there and he quickly dives underneath. He sees that Byron is trapped. He frees Byron, and that's when he confirms it's Diana. That is what a moment. He thought that he was sure Diana was dead. And all of a sudden he sees her in this Japanese soldier uniform. How surreal for even the Phantom, even for the ghost who walks. But Byron isn't doing so well. He already had to drive through that wall of fire. Who knows what that did to him? And now he's apparently drowned. The Phantom works as hard as he can. He gets him breathing again. He gets him back to the Skull Cave. And the Phantom and Diana reunite. It's so wonderful, of course. And Diana recounts how they escaped the plane crash, how they escaped from the Japanese forces, led the convoy to the Phantom. Everything is great, and Byron is better again. He wakes up at least. So, Byron, I'm proud of you. That's my diploma. I'd rather hear that from you than get all the medals in the world. I love the relationship between Diana and Byron. We're going to see a little bit of it in the next couple of panels as well. Diana gets a nice little new look now that she's out of those Japanese soldier clothes. How do you feel, pal? The way I look, like the wreck of Hesperus. The wreck of Hesperus is an 1840s poem by I'm not sure, I can't remember the author just out the hand, but it's a narrative poem. It's actually a very haunting and somewhat relatively disturbing poem about a shipwreck. I do highly recommend it if you like sort of classic horror imagery. It's fantastic. Meanwhile, a jungle tribesman comes up and warns that Japanese soldiers are approaching. 10 miles, 20 miles across the river, coming this way. Thousands, millions, everything. And so the Phantom realizes we've got to know their strength and equipment. And Byron says, you expect too much. Nobody can know that but the general. True. Then I'll have to ask the general. The Phantom's going to go and have a chat with the Japanese general. That's very interesting. He's going to go and try to capture a Japanese general. That is very, very ambitious, but we are talking about the ghost who walks here. And so the Japanese forces are surrounding the Japanese general. Alone against 15,000, the Phantom comes to kidnap the general, and the Phantom just starts going hog wild on this line. He's creeping up closer and closer. The general. Meanwhile, Byron and Diana have this great moment, as I was mentioning. No one else on earth would think of such a thing. Is that why you love him? He's brave, but he's also, he's everything. Yeah, Diana, I kind of go for you too. No other man in the world could make me treat you like a sister, and I really mean it. Hello, brother, sister. How coy, how I love that flirting. That's so endearing, but oh man, that's vicious of Diana. Especially when you know how Byron feels about you. I love these panels of the Phantoms jumping up to the trees and jumping branch to branch. Here he comes, a nice fat general, just what Diana ordered. And the Phantom drops down in the general's car and he knocks out the general and he takes out the driver and his bodyguards and he takes over the car and he drives it out of the Japanese encampment. And just like that, he's escaped with the general, but not completely, as some motorcycles come barreling up behind him. And of course, he starts side swiping them back and forth. Those motorcycles did not stand a chance, to be honest. And they can't shoot at the Phantom because, of course, the Phantom has the general in the car with him. So the Phantom pulls a Byron and drives the car off the cliff. That's a really interesting callback. He does that to get away from the Japanese forces, and he starts swimming across the river with the general to get away, but the Japanese soldiers are quickly following him. They briefly get the general back, but the Phantom swims underneath and takes out both of them. Meanwhile, Japanese forces are shooting at jungle tribesmen from the shore. The Phantom is fighting off these Japanese soldiers in the river, and he emerges with the general. I'll be. He brought back a Japanese general after all. A fat one, just like you ordered. He does what he does what he's going to do. He says what he's going to do. He does what he's going to do. And so the general comes to, and at this point, the general's been knocked out. The last thing he remembers was this costume man just knocking him in the face in this car, and he thought it must have been a dream. No, there, glaring him as that man or something. Who are you? Where am I? You speak English? Good. I speak 7 languages. And I bet he can double cross you in every one of them. So this general's very accomplished. They make no bones about, calling these Japanese officers ignorant or stupid or anything. They just kind of call them cruel and evil, which is terrible, of course, but that's the nature of that's the nature of characterizing your enemy. And so the Phantom, of course, threatens the general, but the general is not having it. He's not. Do what you will. I give you no information. Many of these Japanese are fanatics. This one's an especially tough nut, but I think I can crack him. How? He whispers something to Gran. Gran whispers something to the local chiefs. The chiefs come over. Because of your law, we have long given up our tribal custom. Years have passed since we hunted long pig. But may we just this once? This Japanese general, we would like to eat him. I guess long pig is the name for human. It's very disturbing, of course. And that is exactly what causes the Japanese general to. Me, fat one, juicy. You can't fool me. You're not really going to. Of course, that convinces the general to give up the role, and we get this nice little panel. Imagine he actually thought we were going to eat him. Truly, those Japanese must be savages. I love that little turnabout there. The general reveals all the information the Phantom needs, how much forces, how many weapons. That is all. Are you finished with me? Yes. The general suddenly whips out a short knife from his sleeve and runs. No. And he was about to commit. About to commit seppuku. He was about to commit suicide because he disgraced his uniform and he gave away information to the enemy. So completely. I love that they addressed that little fact because didn't really address it with Karachi too much. It just led to Karachi's death. But with the general, of course, the Phantom had no plans to kill him. But of course, the general was going to kill himself. And so, with the Phantom knowing what he's facing, that gives him enough information to hopefully hold out for reinforcements. But there's a sort of implication in a dialogue here that the Phantom is really not that confident that they're going to be all that successful. They have, especially now that he knows what he's facing, maybe he's calculating the odds in his head and he knows that there's very little that they can actually do against this. And so the final battle is on. The forces are fighting over the Ulan River. They hold out for the day, and the Phantom decides to get counterattack at night. So he decides to sneak into the Japanese encampment. He rallies the Bangalla tribes people. You must sleep, you're tired. First, I must check our lines. You are the one who must sleep. If only you were out of this safe, somewhere far away. And he spoke as if he never expected to see me again. Oh, I'm just imagining things. And like I said, the Phantom really does not believe he's going to come back from this one. He even lets Byron know, if I don't come back, take care of her. And look at that. Just a very touching illustration of kissing Diana while she sleeps. So the Phantom sneaks into the Japanese encampment in the night to raid the Japanese, hopefully to disable their forces for good, but he doesn't seem to be super confident that he's going to be able to do that. And meanwhile, even Byron is showing his doubt. This is the beginning of the end. What do you mean, the end? Just that. We can't survive another blast. If only our reinforcements had come. They're on their way, Captain, and how? And the Allied forces have arrived. Major Kirk, Captain Byron, your people have done a magnificent job holding this line. 2 armored divisions are an hour away. 3 bomber flights should be over in 5 minutes. It's too good to be true. We must know the exact location of the enemy so we can radio our bombers. But they can't bomb now. He's over there. The Phantom is on a night raid. He wasn't expecting the forces to get here, and especially not within 5 minutes. So this is insane. The reinforcements have shown up, but the Phantom does not know that. He is in enemy territory. He is in the kill zone, and somebody's got to warn him. And so, of course, Diana rushes off to try. I'm going to warn him. She grabs a torch and she jumps up to the top of the wall. He must see me. He must. But the Phantom isn't the only thing that sees Diana. A sniper. Oh, Diana's making herself a target. Darling, darling. Across the river, the Japanese sniper aims carefully and then... Oh, man. I mean, if this panel had audio, if these panels had audio, this panel would not. That would be a silent panel of Diana being shot, falling backwards to the ground. And meanwhile, the Phantom has no idea. He's still fighting the fight over in the Japanese camp. Byron finds Diana. And as the Phantom is surrounded by Japanese forces, looks like you got me, but I'm going to take a couple of you with me. Suddenly, the dark sky is filled with roar of great bombers. Tomorrow, run, brother, run. United Nations bombs. The Japanese have been handing it out for quite a while. Now it's their turn to take it. Meanwhile, Diana's barely holding on. He's there. And she collapses in Byron's arms once again. Diana has been shot by a sniper. This is so terrible. And the bombs are ravaging the Japanese forces. Phantom's running off to safety. He's swimming across. What are they cheering for? As the great shout echoes up and down the line. The Phantom and his raiders have returned. The Phantom is back to safety. He meets up with Major Kirk. So you are the leader here. You've done a magnificent job. Your boys are doing quite a job from the sky themselves. You got out just in time. That pattern bombing will cover every yard of this woods. And meanwhile, Diana has been taken, rushed off to a hospital by Byron. Some surgeons are quickly operating on the roadside on an improvised operating room. This will make good reading at home. Right, now to see Byron and Diana. Phantom still doesn't know. He doesn't know what's happened to Diana. And he's looking for Diana. Have you seen Byron and Diana? Have you seen Byron and Diana? Of course, they're still in the dugout, the only place they could be. They're not there. Where is Diana? The girl? She was trying to signal you from the wall. A sniper got her hit. I'm afraid she's dead. Oh my goodness. Phantom, Diana dead. No, you can't leave now as commandant of the sector. You must wait until operations are completed. And so the Phantom has to stick around. He can't even rush off to find where Diana is. But thankfully he gets some information that she's in bad shape, but she's received a transfusion. He does his duty at the front lines where he's got to remain as a commandant to a sector. He gets an update from Diana. She's got a fighting chance at surviving. The United Nations units mop up in the devastated woods. The stunned Japanese survivors of the air blitz are gathered up. The power of the Japanese in Bangalla has been broken. You've done an amazing job. We had orders to follow. A military plane reaches the coast carrying a mysterious passenger, and the Phantom finally gets to meet up with Diana. And he only sees her for a moment. This is very interesting. I must return to Ulan to take care of something, but I'll catch up with you. You saved her life. I'll never forget. Thanks, Byron. What a guy, man. Byron goes from being this guy that tried to steal Diana. Completely understandable. You know, Diana's an amazing woman, to being the Phantom's best bro in this war. Man, it's incredible. And of course, the jungle rejoices at their victory. And the Phantom reveals, I give you in marble the real hero of the Ulan, the man they said couldn't fight, the jungle warrior of the Ulan. And of course, we get a statue of the Bangalla tribes people. And that's where the story ends. To quickly, this is a little interesting thing. They mentioned at the end of this book that there was an alternate version of panels where they were uh, more vertical, extended. So you can see this page is identical to this page. So you can see, for instance, Byron there in the waiting room on the phone. And of course, here we just get an extended bottom of the panel so we see a little bit more. Apparently, this version was made to preserve paper during paper shortages due to the war. But that version, very little is known about it. A complete version of it does not exist as far as Hermes Press is aware. They just had that one panel or that one page as an example. And there you have it. That's the Phantom Goes to War. I know this video was extremely long. Hopefully you stuck with it. If you didn't, I completely understand. It's quite a story. It is mostly propaganda, and the title is a little bit misleading, right? Because the Phantom doesn't go to war. The war comes to Bangalla. But what I love about this story was that it would have been really easy to make it a much more straightforward propaganda story and just be like super pro-American and all that. And really, to be honest, we don't even get too many references to Americans other than the USO badges. And then I didn't point them out, but there's war bond sort of advertisements in some of the panels. Um, no, mostly it's just Allied forces, and it's mostly Bengala forces. Uh, Kind of a curious decision by Lee Falk, because he was also, you know, writing for the war effort, of course, to focus on his, you know, fictionalized tribes people over Allied forces. But I do love that it is contextual to the Phantom, that he, and I think that was what he was trying to accomplish. Was everybody else was doing these propaganda pieces for the war effort, depicting American soldiers as the heroes, you know, English soldiers as the heroes, etc. Uh, but Lee Falk probably made the choice to show how the war is affecting people all over the world, people that, you know, the West might not even be familiar with, in terms of tribes people, and how everybody was willing to fight against the Axis forces. In this story, of course, it's only the Japanese, but they even have that line where the Phantom says, you know, how would his ancestors be proud of spending the treasure against Axis forces? You know, so even though the Japanese soldiers are overtly the enemy in this, there is some of that orientation for who and what the larger enemy is. And I do think that was his complete intention, was to, you know, sort of show that this is everybody's war. Everybody that's against evil is going to stand up and fight. And so, you know, for people that might have felt burnt out from reading all the other stories about great English soldiers in a typical war setting, Lee Falk is here. He's still illustrating the Phantom in the jungle in Bengala, and giving a very Phantom centric story. And I always love those stories. And of course, he does not leave Diana out. He creates a story in a way that makes Diana super relevant to it, and in fact gives us the best touching moments in this story are when the Phantom is desperately trying to get Diana out of the situation, and Diana, of course, understandably, does not want to leave. And again, it's another point that I didn't point out very early on in the story when Diana is recruited to go to Bengala in the first place. There's a panel that says how excited she is, but it's because she's going to see the Phantom again. Even though this war is going on, Diana's still just so in love with the Phantom. She's excited to see him again. Uh, all of it hits for me, and there's a criticism to be made, of course, to the insensitivity that exists throughout the entire book, especially for Japanese soldiers, but also for the people that are supposed to be the good guys here, the jungle tribes people. But again, that was just, you know, and I don't want to say that was just, but it was racial insensitivity at the time that was just overt. And Lee Falk was, you know, on the he was on the frontier of um, normalizing tribes people as real people, rather than enemies or savages or anything like that. So, and I'm not saying he was completely, he's completely free of any sort of ignorance himself. Obviously, with the way they're illustrated and some of the sort of, you know, some of the poor decisions that they make, he can certainly be criticized for that. But I thought this book did a really great job just being an exposition for all of the forces, all of the sides of the war that are in it. And when the Bengallans join the war, he just continuously focuses on how the war affects Bangalla. And so, if you want a super, Phantom centric book, Phantom centric story, you can't go wrong with The Phantom Goes to War. It's a long one, but it's so good. I do hope you stuck with me. Sorry if I belabored that, belabor that post mortem. I hope you had a great time. Next week, we're going to get back to the Sunday stories, and I believe it's going to be The Imposter. It's going to be Sunday story number 7. So we're going to, even though the war is still going on in the real world, Lee Falk and now Wilson McCoy are getting back to business as usual and telling phantom stories during a wartime. Hopefully, you'll join me for that. I will see you next time. Bye.